Welcome to the Road Ahead podcast. I'm Ray Ghanbari, Chief Technology Officer at Omnitracs. I'll be your host for this ongoing series of podcasts that will bring you a myriad of professionals, both from inside and outside the transportation industry. My hope is that these conversations will be helpful to you as you're considering ideas and innovations that could transform your fleet financially, operationally, and safely. I hope you find these brief conversations thought-provoking and rewarding. I look forward to discussing ideas and topics that are outside our normal day-to-day, and we welcome your feedback. Today, we are continuing our discussion about megacities with Homaira Akbari, President and CEO of AKnowledge Partners, a global strategy advisory firm. Thank you again for joining us, Homaira.
Absolutely. It's really a pleasure.
For our listeners who are in the transportation industry, what do you see as the key environmental, societal, and governmental impacts from the emergence of megacities?
Right. Well, megacities and pandemic, actually, perhaps more pandemic. Last week, we said remote working is here to stay, because of its acceleration by pandemic. If you recall, pre-pandemic, only 5% of workforce in the U.S. worked 3+ days from home, and post-pandemic that has been, of course, at one point was 88%, but now it's probably 45%. But there are both societal and environmental impacts, i.e. ESG impacts. Let me focus on those two, though. First, on societal impacts. I would like to highlight that personal productivity and well-being both have been affected. Reports from companies suggest that on average, self-reported productivity was unchanged during pandemic, but it varied with role and experience. And while some workers reported satisfaction with remote work, not all of those were positive. For example, average work days got longer during COVID. I don't know whether you experienced that, but I did personally. And some, but not all employees with children struggled with childcare. Managers appear to be especially hard hit. And overall, pandemic and working from home disproportionately impacted women, members of Spanish-speaking and Black communities, and individuals with disabilities. So the need to mitigate pervasive social deficit and societal burnouts remains. Contrary to the general belief that working from home made these less of an issue. In fact, it became more of an issue. For example, studies shows in August 2020, 58% of polled U.S. workers reported symptoms of burnout, and that was compared to 45% pre-pandemic. So if remote working continues to be here or continues to remain, it is important to consider first how to decouple private and professional spaces for workers, how to keep workers connected to their organizations and one another, and how to deal with burnouts, which may become less visible, actually. Additionally, if companies divest physically and financially from communities, because when you work from home, basically you no longer have companies investing physically and financially in their communities, then I think what's going to happen is you're going to see substantial change. Because in fact, that investment by companies resulted in higher growth and higher satisfaction of community. On the other hand, in terms of environmental effects, also not everything was rosy. Again, contrary to the general belief that, there was a lot of fantastic environmental effects. True, as industries, transportation, and companies closed down, it brought a sudden drop of greenhouse gases emission. For example, compared with this time of last year, levels of air pollution in New York City reduced by 50% in May 2020 as compared to the same time in 2019. Or in China, it was estimated that nearly 50% reduction of N2O and carbon dioxide occurred due to the shutdown of heavy industries. And there was, of course, a reduction in water pollution, noise pollution, and there was a significant ecological restoration and assimilation, especially in the touristic spots. However, on the other hand, you had medical waste generation, which increased. For instance, Wuhan in China produced more than 240 metric tons of medical waste every day during the time of the outbreak, where in the past they only produced 50 million tons. So they went up by a factor of 5. So, it's not all positive.
Interesting. One of the things that, I've experienced at Omnitracs with our last mile customers is the extraordinary lengths they go to get goods and services delivered to their customers in a timely manner. Probably the biggest impact we've seen to last mile delivery is the mainstreaming of same day or even same hour delivery. So which do you think came first? Companies providing same day, same hour delivery as a point of differentiation, or people concentrated in megacities and other dense communities that were demanding this type of service and companies having to step up to deliver on it?
Right, that's a very interesting question, a question that I've asked myself several times. And as I was, thinking about our discussion, I actually went back and did some research. And what I found out is same-day delivery has always been the holy grail of internet retail. Many companies have crashed and burned on the quest of same-day delivery. Mm-hmm. For example, in 1998, there was a company called Cosmo. I don't know whether you remember it. I don't.
I remember it well. I took advantage of it as long as I could.
Well, there we go. This company promised to deliver customers in 6 markets anything they wanted to their front door in an hour or less. But with no minimum orders, people were buying candy bars, maybe you and your children, that cost for less than the actual cost of delivery. When they tried to implement a delivery fee, customers revolted and soon Cosmo went belly up. Mm-hmm. So that is the challenge that Amazon actually faced when they first tested same-day delivery in 2009. That was the beginning of when they tested it. And they were thinking, how do I deliver orders quickly without going broke? So they started off slowly, offering the service in just 7 cities and charged a $6 fee for Prime members and $15 for non-members. By 2014, customers were really embracing the service, ordering 10 times as many items with same-day delivery that year over the previous year. And that's the key, driving the demand by offering a type of service. So in general, customers know what they want, and for many customers, it's getting their products as soon as possible. Yes. Today, same-day delivery is around about 23% market share of all deliveries, and that's because, of course, of pandemic, which really drove that. Having said that, 70% of customers still pick the cheapest delivery rate, so not same day. 5% pick reliability and time window, and 2% pick instant, i.e. same hour.
Very interesting. Mm-hmm.
So the numbers are very interesting. But what I want to focus on, same-day delivery obviously is here to stay and is very important. Having said that, it's not just that, because customers want the final mile to fit around their lives. That means offering different options, including choice of specific days, specific windows, click and collect, parcel lockers, and many other things. That's why that 5% pick reliability and time window, in my view, that in future will grow a lot higher. For that reason, I think partnering with final mile technology partners who can offer a range of services will really ensure that business customers and consumers can pick and choose based on their needs.
So as you look into your crystal ball for 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or even 10 years from now, what aspects of the megacities trends do you think will have the biggest impact on our supply chain and transportation industries?
I think it's last mile, actually. So if in the last podcast we talked about, we created this mental model of the architecture of the megacities. If you recall, we had a ring which with diameter of 50 to 60 miles, or 25 to 35 miles from the center, and that outside of that, there were mega warehouses, and inside the outskirts, immediately within that ring, you had large warehouses, and then you had many more warehouses. So what I think will happen is What becomes the most interesting part of all of this is, in fact, last mile. The state of last mile logistics right now is in flux, with new vendors popping up everywhere in the corner of the markets, offering different variety of solutions for locations, fees, time windows, and service options. Using crowdsourced drivers and efficient delivery tech platforms, e-commerce and brick and mortar business alike can deliver an outstanding customer experience without incurring the risk or expense of hiring a staff, building a specific program, or paying the price of using national carriers. So that's what I think is really big. So what is the outlook for megacities? But I think it's not just the outlook for megacities, actually. There is, of course, variation, but I feel this is the outlook that I believe is similar for megacities, suburbs, and rural areas. I believe in the next 10 years, a new ecosystem of deliveries will be created that expands the amount and type of goods and services to be delivered even faster, from same day to same hour, for products from groceries to building materials, asphalt, and more. And warehouses will move to both outskirts of cities and within cities for quicker distribution. More and more brick and mortar stores will do fulfillment rather than sell inventory, and deliveries will leave stores to go to consumer homes in a matter of minutes. So I think that's what's going to happen. That's the vision I have.
So a lot of transformational change is coming. But what are the 3 to 5 things that you recommend fleets can do today to prepare for these sweeping changes in how we live and how we work?
No, that's good point. I mean, yes, there's always vision, and then there is what do I do tomorrow? And my business, practically. I used to be a CEO, so and I know that. It's like, okay, all of that is very good. How do I deliver my service and the solutions tomorrow to my customers in a happy way? So I have 5 things that I think fleets can do. First, realize that customers will have expectations about last mile delivery, will have high expectations, very high expectations. Second, offer the option of same-day delivery, which we already talked about. Third, provide real-time transparency to customers. Fourth, design your operations to be agile. And fifth, have an ESG strategy. Let me get into a few of these. First, realize that customers will have high expectations. So last mile delivery, in my opinion, is becoming increasingly demanding. Consumers have now formed new habits and are expected to shop more online than in store, even as life gets back to normal. So the modern customer is unforgiving. It just takes one bad delivery to damage a brand's reputation, especially with social media and online reviews at their fingertips. When it comes to returns, customer expectations are just as high, expecting the same amount of ease, speed, and choice. I actually have, speaking of experience, I love this British brand that I bought a couple of times. Well, I bought it also in brick and mortar, but I a couple of times bought it myself online. But the return is so painful that after the second time I said, that's it. I no longer ever look at their online commerce because it's just too painful. So I think with such demand and expectation over the final mile, it's essential for fleets to work with experts. Working with a technology partner keeps the customer needs at the center of delivery and returns and ensures it's up to the task, ahead, and very efficient solutions. Then I want to focus on number 3, which was provide real-time transparency to customers. It's, obviously it's similar to high expectations, but it's not one and the same. Because another key trend in the final mile, in my opinion, is the technology which allows real-time visibility and transparency over the final mile. Just like we all like to call for an Uber or click for an Uber, and we have to see exactly where that car is.
That's right.
And by minute, we want to know where they're driving towards us. It's exactly the same. Technology enables businesses to fully track the parcel journey, enabling them to optimize routes based on disruption or traffic. Therefore, fleets really should, again, have a technology partner permitting them to get that real-time transparency to their customers. And that's really the key. because customers will want that. Now, we talked earlier again in the last podcast, I believe, that today 23% of customers require same day and 70% still pick the cheapest. But even the ones who pick the cheapest, I recently I ordered some, I went to a shop and ordered some trousers and it didn't come on time. So I was like, oh my God, what happened to it? I mean, it would have just taken them one email to send to me and say, your package is en route and you get it on this date. That's very, very important. On the last point 4 and 5, where design your operations to be agile, I think if the pandemic has taught us anything, or taught us business anything, it is the need for absolute agility. We're still dealing with an environment that's very unpredictable, and I think it will always remain that some level of unpredictability. We're going to see further supply chain disruptions, and it will take, I think, 2-3 years before we see everything come back to normal, if any, because there may be other things. So to me, fleets must be able to quickly scale up or down, turn different services on or off, and be able to adapt to change, because nothing will remain static and expect things to shift almost on a daily basis. Again, to me, agility is through technology. If fleets partner with the right technology partners, they can become agile. And then the final one, have an ESG strategy. We spoke about that earlier during this podcast. Have focus on your S, on your environmental and societal. And for example, again, there you can take advantage of technology partners and ESG specialists, where they can help you design and measure metrics for these, both your societal and environmental impact. For example, set a carbon footprint target for your fleet and then measure and exceed those targets. But be proactive towards it, because that's what not just shareholders require, but also consumers. Millennium are going to be very focused on ESG, and they would want to work with those vendors who help them with that.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing your insights and perspectives with us, Homaira. It's often difficult in the moment to really appreciate the impact of some of these large-scale societal changes as they're happening. So we really appreciate you helping us better understand the emergence of megacities and what it'll mean to our industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I very much enjoyed both sessions.
Well, stay tuned for our next podcast, when we will continue our conversation with Homaira, but change our focus to cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity? Why does it matter? And what should you be doing to protect your business and your fleets? You've been listening to the Road Ahead podcast from Omnitracs. I hope these few minutes you've spent with us provided ideas and innovations that could transform your fleet financially, operationally, and safely. For other podcasts and information, please go to omnitracs.com. I look forward to you joining us again for our next Road Ahead podcast.